great to be in such a crowd of real mixed perspectives in terms of climate solutions, because we really need climate solutions from all directions. I've come into the career path of solving climate change pretty much for my entire career, originally as a scientist and engineer, then working in international development all around the world in more than 30 countries throughout Asia, Africa, Latin America. Then got invited back to come to Stanford University and start teaching courses on solving climate. And while doing that, launched a tech platform to help us all track and gamify our personal climate footprint. And out of that, started working on the finance side of things, where we discovered that more climate efficient companies in pretty much every sector of the economy tend to financially outperform what the market is doing. And in teaching climate solution courses at Stanford, I ended up getting connected with John Kumi, and we started teaching a course called Solving Climate at Scale. And we were really surprised that even just a few years ago, we couldn't find a good textbook that talked about how to solve climate change. There were books that talked about the science of why climate change is happening, and some that talked about specific important climate solutions like renewable energy technology, but we couldn't find anything that really put together all the technological pillars as well as the economic and sociological communication and aligning incentives pillars as well. So that's what led us to writing a book about it. And I'm going to be talking about some of the core findings for the high level, what we should be doing more to solve climate change, and then how it applies to our own lives and to our own investment portfolios. So something that it looks like, well, the slides behind me look better than the slides in front of me. So hopefully this is somewhat legible. The take-home message here is just net zero by 2050, which is still what many companies, governments, investors are committing to, is far too little too late. What the updated climate science says is that as a planet, we actually need net zero by 2040 at the latest. And that means investors, governments, others with larger pools of resources really need to be moving much faster than that. And this is based on the latest climate science coming out of the UTS One Earth model, which I really recommend anybody checking out. There's the link up there, and I'm happy to share it with you afterwards. It's the most realistic modeling of how to fully decarbonize our global economy and get it beyond this tipping point of net zero, which is really just a transition to net climate positive, where we're actually removing more emissions than we're putting up into the air. Really, even this 1.5 degree warmer world target that is the stretch goal of the Paris Agreement, and sometimes we're already starting the crossover to, we should think about this as a limit, not a target, because a 1.5 degree warmer world is a world that is substantially worse than the world we're already in, that I would argue, and I think many of you would agree based on the conversations we've already had today, is already far too damaged from climate extremes. And I can speak from a personal level where I got into working on climate solutions growing up on a small farm in Northern California. And I literally, as a kid, would have nightmares about wildfire destroying my family's farm, which at that point seemed pretty irrational because we never had big fires. They were fires sometimes that were a few acres, but certainly not in the community destroying level. Flash forward a few decades, and my nightmare unfortunately came true. We were in the middle of one of the huge fires in Northern California in 2017. I lost my home along with over a dozen family members and hundreds of community members overnight. We had some of our neighbors get trapped and burned to death in their homes because this fire was moving literally on hurricane force winds. It was moving miles in minutes, and I frankly just am really grateful that my family was able to get out with their lives. This is the kind of thing that is happening every year now. It never used to happen, but we're seeing it in the news. Even I'm worried to the point that we're starting to be desensitized to it. And of course, it's not just the direct fire danger. It's the smoke that is exposing millions more to hazardous air quality that ultimately is making us sick and taking years off our lives as well. To solve climate, we need to reverse the damage that's already happening. And that requires getting beyond net zero thinking to net climate positive thinking. So in the book, I'm not going to go into detail, but we talk about 8 pillars that we need to get our planet to net climate positive. And the 3 key pillars that we don't talk about enough are how to mobilize the amount of money that we need, how to realign our incentive systems, and how to, really importantly, elevate truth that we already have all the solutions that we need, and they actually save us a tremendous amount of money as well as saving lives and livelihoods in the process. So we created checklists for climate action that are related to how to decarbonize your own investment portfolio alongside these 8 pillars of climate action. And apologies, it looks like they're not showing up correctly on the slides, but I'm happy to share this with a larger audience. At Etho Capital, on the aligning incentive side of things, we've shown that it's really important to do the complete climate math for your investment portfolio, to look at scope 1, 2, and really essentially also scope 3 climate emissions with the supply chain in there, and then also to look at the avoided emissions for investing in climate solution technologies, things like renewable energy, electrification, sustainable foods. When you calculate those climate benefits, those avoided emissions, you can actually identify companies that are net climate positive, that already have more climate benefits than climate harm, and you can create entire portfolios that empower you to invest this way. With Etho Capital, we work on this mobilizing money piece. And in the big picture sense, we already have all the money that we need to transition from our current climate pollution status quo to climate solutions. The UN estimates that we need about 4 trillion invested in climate solutions every year. And in cash, we're already spending more than 6 trillion per year supporting our fossil infrastructure. When we factor in all the additional damage from fossil fuels, air pollution beyond climate change that is making us sick and killing people, it actually makes the fossil industry look like it's over 22 trillion in cost to the global economy every year. So far, far more expensive to continue our status quo. And I won't go into all the other mobilizing money solutions, but happy to geek out beyond this talk. At Etho, as mentioned, we launched the Etho Climate Leadership Index and the associated Etho ETF more than 7 years ago. And since then, certainly not out every hour of every day, but on average, we've substantially outperformed the US market. And I should also toss a shout out that you wouldn't know it from looking at me, but we actually are a women-led and a BIPOC-led firm, which we're proud about. And we don't just do deep decarbonized index investing. We also incorporate overall ESG factors like taking out weapons companies, tobacco companies, etc. But this is really, I don't want to just be pitching our strategy, but this is really kind of groundbreaking to realize that when you do more complete climate math, investing in deep decarbonization in every sector of the economy is already financially outperforming the status quo, and has been for at least 7.5 years of live performance. This isn't an academic talk. We've seen it go much further back in terms of the research that led us to do this. And now we're really excited that we have a new global climate positive index which is showing you can actually go to net climate positive with a fully global diversified portfolio and likely have similar financial performance. Though, of course, I need to make our financial regulators happy by saying past performance cannot guarantee future results. But if you believe in all the commitments that companies and governments are setting, there's no reason to believe that this isn't going to continue, at least in my personal opinion. Again, this is one of the many core truths about solving climate change that we all need to be working to elevate, that investing in climate solutions just ends up giving us a happier, healthier, wealthier economy than our current status quo. And it's important to realize that our fossil fuel industry, just from air pollution not even connected to climate change, this doesn't even include all the wildfire smoke, Fossil fuels, according to research from the Harvard School of Public Health, are killing somewhere over 8 million people every single year. Collectively, fossil fuels have killed more people than every war in the past few hundred years, perhaps in the course of human history, which is pretty staggering. And that's a conservative estimate that doesn't even include potential health impacts from microplastics and wildfire smoke and various petrochemical-related diseases, cancers, etc. So the real cost of our fossil fuel status quo is probably much, much higher. But on the positive side, that means we have tremendous co-benefits, tremendous savings in making the switch to climate solutions. This is quickly looking at how those costs break down. There's more of that in the book, but I'll skip over since we're short on time. And I really want to end with a couple asks to all of us as a community. Etho Capital is part of a growing global coalition that's launched something called the Climate+Positive Investing Alliance. And we have many members that are here at the forum this week as well. And the Climate+Positive Investing Alliance is really here to help all of us that are serious about investing in climate solutions and getting money out of pollution to do the climate math and divest our portfolios, reinvest our portfolios at the pace necessary. So there's no cost of membership. The only cost is a sincere effort to do this together as a community. And you can learn more at positiveclimate.org. And the one other shout out that I'll give, the one other ask and really invitation to all of you that I'll toss out is my co-author for the book, John Koomey, and I just gave a talk to the White House a few days ago. And it ended with an invitation to present our highest priority climate actions to the White House, effectively to get directly in front of Biden and his top climate people. So we have our own short list, but I'd really like to crowdsource a short list beyond our own short list from the wisdom of the crowd here. And it's an open invitation. I'll be here all week until Saturday morning to connect and brainstorm about the bigger picture of how we transition beyond net zero thinking to climate positive and do it at the pace that climate science says is necessary, and share the good news that it really is possible. It really can be done. And it just, again, it's better for everybody. That's what the science says. That's what the math says. We just need to elevate those truths above all the misinformation and be working from every level, not just as investors or those running startups, but also as individual citizens and those connecting to government, because it's really every piece of key actors need to be decarbonizing with every piece of these key 8 pillars for climate positive activity. So happy to geek out more. Apologies, I've been going since about 3 a.m. this morning, so I'm a little bit in the dazed and confused mindset right now, but I think I have enough caffeine in me to make it through the rest of the day. And I'm excited to connect and collaborate however you see fit.